Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox, and we have a bad case of I told you so-itis. A few days ago, I did a video about a trans prisoner who wanted to serve his time in a woman's jail because he knew it would be easier than in a man's jail, because he is one of those that likes to get down with the kids. You know what I mean? A P. And I said it was probably a very bad idea. He would be having, let's say, access to vulnerable young girls. Not a good idea at all. And I was right. Well, I was right because I'm not a half-witted woke wanker. Unfortunately, the half-witted woke wankers who run our justice system thought otherwise and thought it was a pretty good idea to put a man like this in a woman's prison. Well, guess what? He's being moved to a different wing because, well, let's have a look at the article. Okay, this, if you remember, is the story about the man who pretends to be a woman so that he can serve easy time. I did a video of it. I'll put a link up here at the end of the video. It's also where the police insisted that he be called she and that they wouldn't tolerate anyone misgendering him and they would consider it a hate crime. They were soon dissuaded of this. The backlash was massive and swift. They took down that tweet and anything that related with it and admitted they got it completely wrong. Not the only thing the police get wrong these days. I've done countless videos on where police are in the wrong. There's a lot of them because they never stop being in the wrong. They're awful. Anyway, getting into the story here. The transgender P, who Sussex police insisted to be called a woman, had to move prison wings after starting a relationship with a vulnerable female inmate. Gosh, say it isn't so. It's exactly how I said it would go down, and that's exactly how it's gone down. You don't have to be a genius to work out this is going to happen. Serial P, Sally Ann Dixon, identifies as a woman but is legally male. Not just legally male, as I say, he is penis intacto. Despite controversy, Dixon was sentenced as a woman and sent to a female prison. Shortly after arriving, he had to be transferred to a different wing after starting a relationship with a vulnerable inmate with learning difficulties, presumably someone who was rather childlike, exactly the way he likes them. Whoever thought this was a good idea needs to lose their job. Now, before we get into the detail, they are going to tell a story here, which I'm going to relate this story. This is about Dixon. And it can be difficult. We're not going to go into details. We're just going to give a brief overview because I think the details are far too harrowing and not something I want in my mind. So I'm not going to put it into yours, but we are going to glance over the details here. The girl was just 7 years old when she fell into a monster's clutches. Invited to stay in a caravan on the Sussex coast with a friend, that day had started so enjoyably. She had entered a hula hoop competition at the campsite and had been encouraged to drink some lemonade, although it later turned out this was spiked with alcohol. During the evening, the true purpose of her seaside break became hideously apparent. Back at the caravan, the bewildered child was made to watch a certain type of video, the prelude to playing a game devised by her host, the details of which are too sordid to recount. It was the beginning of a 4-year ordeal that ended physically only when she moved away from the area at 11 years old, but it continues to haunt and torment her today, some 3 decades later. She was not her assailant's only victim in what Sussex police described as a systemic campaign between 1989 and 1996. This same person abused at least 6 other children, 4 girls and 2 boys, forever blighting their lives. By now, you may be wondering why we haven't disclosed whether this serial predator was man or woman. The omission is deliberate. For this week, the question of their gender identity sparked the latest transgender-related fiasco of many, many of these. And there he is, this sicko, this P, this destroyer of children, who wants to be a woman so he can do time in a woman's jail. I hope the women in that jail do justice. But we'll get into the story. A debacle has seen Sussex police, arguably Britain's most woke force, compelled to make a humiliating climb down after issuing a jaw-dropping tweet warning social media users against questioning this man's gender. It brought a sharp rebuke from the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who bluntly told the force that it should stop playing identity politics and denying biology. The genesis of the lamentable story tells us much about the skewed ideology that now pervades sections of Britain's police. The police are so woke and so virtuous in their signalling of everything they believe in that they're not even doing their job. The job they're paid for. Criminals are running free. Only it's been revealed 1 in 16 crimes in this country even gets to court. It's that bad. It started after the man, as he then was, brackets and is closed brackets, who robbed those 7 children of their innocence and was convicted at Lewis Crown Court of 30 assaults and jailed for 20 years. He is likely to only do 12. While he was committing these vile offences, he still used his given name, John Stephen Dixon, and presented as a male. Yet if we believe him, and we don't, and we will examine his story in due course, in 2004 he began transitioning. So the monster appeared in court as Sally Ann Dixon, a 58-year-old female. But he's not female, he may be 58. But if he wants to be female, I think it would be very, very appetite, I think, for the ladies in that prison to make him a female. You know what I'm saying, girls? Throughout the 4-week trial, the prosecutor referred to Dixon by the male pronoun when alluding to the SOs, without any objection from the defence. However, when Dixon was found guilty, he was sentenced as a woman and sent to a female prison. This was despite the fact that he doesn't possess a gender recognition certificate, a legal document that can be granted after someone has undergone a medical examination and has been living as a woman for at least 2 years. Dixon is now among the 500 plus inmates at HMP Bronzefield near Ashford in Surrey, the UK's only purpose-built private women's prison. He has been there for less than 3 months since being convicted in early July. Not long enough, not harsh enough. Should be in a top security male jail with proper villains who would visit upon him a proper level of correctional discipline. However, the Mail can reveal that shortly after arriving at Bronzefield, he had to be transferred to a different wing after starting a relationship with a vulnerable inmate. Still more disturbingly, a prison source told us the woman Dixon targeted had learning difficulties and mental health issues. Not surprised, you'd be mad with dealing with that thing. The prisoner was vulnerable, so we managed to get Dixon moved, said the source. Given his catalogue of crimes, we might think he would wish to lie low. Not so, says our informant. Dixon was very outspoken about being transgender. There were a few instances when it was reported he had made inappropriate comments to some of the female prisoners and possibly staff. The comments were of a S nature, flirtatious stuff. Once Dixon was allowed to associate with everyone else, it was very hard to keep an eye on him. He was told he wasn't allowed to go into people's rooms, but once they're unlocked, we don't have the staff to follow him around constantly. Though transgender prisoners just make up 0.2% of the total prison population last year, their rights are sacrosanct. Yes, because the authorities bow down, take the knees, kowtow, and praise the almighty trans. Because they are shit scared. They have no spine, no backbone, no penis, no balls. These people are eunuchs in compared to these trans people. They don't want to admit they are supplicating themselves to the mentally ill, and so they praise them and raise them on high as things to be admired. They're stupid bastards. Prison staff must communicate with them in ways that respect their gender, male. They are entitled to shower alone, no one else is. They have separate cells, no one else does. And choose their own clothing, no one else does. Privileges that would have been denied to John Stephen Dixon, and to which Sally Ann Dixon is doubtless eager to exploit. He should not be allowed to do this. He should be treated as a man, thrown in a man's prison, and with everything he gets everything he deserves coming. Why are the authorities kowtowing to this? Why are the authorities allowing this to happen? Seriously, are they that spineless? Are they that without a scrotum in the whole of the justice system? Will no one stand up and protect the women in prisons? Because what they're doing is they're putting a predator in a prison. It's like introducing a lion into a puppy farm. This is what they're doing. And no one is standing up and saying, actually, no, it's wrong. We must protect the women. These weird, sick people need to be if they don't want to go into a man's prison, they can't go into a woman's prison. Build a separate unit. Build a separate unit for sickos and put them in there. And let them just rot in this prison together. They can do what they want together. They are sick. Sodexo, the company that runs Bronzefield and 4 more of our prisons, is a giant French service provider with interest in everything from catering to hospitals. At Bronzefield, its wardens are struggling with the responsibility of watching over trans prisoners, while also ensuring the welfare of other inmates, says a source. Staff do not like it. The ones that come, the trans prisoners, have a history usually of essaying others, or they come with male genitalia. We don't have the capacity to ensure the safety of the women. If they are incapable of looking after the women in that prison because of him, he needs to be removed. They are not doing the job they are paid for. Not their fault, but they are not doing the job that they are contracted to do, which is to imprison women, but part of that imprisonment is their safety. They have a duty of care on those women. The statistics seem to support this view. In 2019, a court heard there were 163 transgender prisoners in England and Wales, and 81, half the total, had been convicted of SOs. Of the 163, 24 were held in women's prisons. That number should be 0. A spokesman for HMP Bronzefield declined to comment on Dixon, but said there were established policies to keep vulnerable prisoners safe. Well, there might be policies, but they're not being enforced, are they? A prison service spokesman said, however, the safety of women in custody is our top priority. The Justice Secretary is currently reviewing our transgender policy to ensure it properly reflects this. But back to Sussex Police and the furore over that tweet. It began on Monday when they issued a press release publicising their success in investigating Dixon and bringing the victims belated justice. No, if you wanted belated justice, he'd be swinging. He would be swinging. What this self-congratulatory statement omitted to mention was that, according to the prosecution, some of the 7 children had reported Dixon to their force in the early 1990s, while the assaults were still taking place. And again, the police did nothing. But as I said before, the police have a long history of doing nothing when this kind of thing is happening. 15,000 girls AR'd, and the police were conniving with the ARers. They were conniving with the people doing it. They were probably doing it themselves. The police don't care. They don't care about children. The police cannot be trusted with children. The police knew about this. They knew about this. And they're congratulating themselves for stopping it 30 years later. The police are corrupt, dangerous, criminal. There isn't enough words. There's a million words in the English language, and I can't think of ones bad enough to describe the police. No charges were brought, and barring a 6-month sentence for a separate assault on a boy in 97, he remained at large for 22 more years. The 7 had to wait until 2019 before a retrospective complaint by one of them started a fresh inquiry that exposed the full extent of Dixon's abuse. They need to do an inquiry into the police mishandling of this, and every single policeman involved. If they're still working, needs to be fired, and then you take all of them, working or not, and throw them in prison. Yesterday, Sussex Police confirmed that Dixon was arrested and interviewed in 1991 and 96 in relation to an assault, but said there was insufficient evidence to secure a successful prosecution at the time. Leaving aside these inconvenient details, it was the headline above the police press release that ignited a firestorm on social media. Woman convicted of historic offences against children in Sussex. Woman. No, man. To some observers, and most importantly some of the victims and their families, that was misleading. It was downright lying. And it was a subsequent report which described Dixon as preying on her victims. For when committing his crimes, Dixon was a man, and the police did not point this out because they don't want to upset the trans lobby. Because again, the police are virtue signalling wankers. Indeed, those who had the misfortune to listen to the court evidence will know it would have been physically impossible for a biological woman to do what was done to these children. I'm getting sickened by this. The response on social media was immediate and angry, particularly from women. The first to respond was Claire King, a school governor and Labour councillor in Cambridge, No, at Sussex Police, this is not a female crime. She tweeted, "This is a man committing SOs against children, not a woman, not our crimes," said another woman. Had Sussex Police accepted these women were merely exercising their right to free speech on a matter of great public interest, the row might quickly have petered out. Instead, the force poured petrol on the flames by responding with a thinly veiled warning that openly criticising an individual for their stated gender could constitute a hate crime. The police were threatening people for pointing out that this man committed a crime and he was a man. They said, "Hi, Sussex Police do not tolerate any hateful comments towards their gender identity, regardless of crimes committed. This is irrelevant to the crime that has been committed and investigated," read their clumsily worded tweet. It was written by a moron, but of course it was, because it's almost impossible to become a policeman unless you're a fucking moron. And look at Sussex Police. They are out there saving children from being AR'd by sick individuals. Do you trust them? I don't. I don't trust them. I think they are more likely to be the ones committing it. Look at them. That's them doing their job. Oh wait, no it isn't. They're totally incapable of doing their job while they're doing shit like that. I'm coming up. When will the authorities in this country remove their heads from their backsides and take a look around to see the harm they are causing? By pandering to the woke ideologues in the trans lobby, they are directly harming women. And the first duty of any prison is to ensure the safety of its inmates. But that's not going on here, is it? No, these vulnerable women are being provided as victims for a predator. That needs to change. Heads need to roll, and he needs to be removed and placed in a strong male prison where justice can be truly done. And as for Sussex Police, well, they need to be disbanded. The police chief needs to be prosecuted for failure to do his job and to take public money illegally, because he's certainly not earning it. They all need to be given a wake-up lesson in reality and to stop the woke virtue signalling and get on and do their damn job. Thank you for listening. I'm going to finish here. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, keep your children away from policemen, and goodbye.